Today's episode is brought to you by two-way contracts.
It's high noon.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to High Noon Podcast, the competitive Overwatch podcast. I'm your host, The Blevins. With me, as always, is Deathblow. What's up, buddy?
Oh, not too much, my man. How are you doing?
You know what? I'm excited. I'm excited. I'm like not nervous. I'm like, okay, kind of somber, kind of sad. Regular season is over, but I'm excited for what Blizzard hopefully has in store for us for the off season. There's got to be something, right? We'll definitely be talking about that as the show progresses.
End of the season is always sad, but we got to remember that the playoffs are always the best part of every season, and that is still in front of us. So we've got that to look forward to. I'm definitely really excited about that. Also, sad. Gotta be honest. A little bit sad about it because my guys didn't make it in there. But yeah, we'll get into what happened this week as we're doing the Stage 4 recap.
Didn't lose in horrible fashion after sandbagging for 500 weeks in the finals of the stage.
Let me cry for your first place.
Man, only got second place. Now we're averaging, let's see, 2, 4, 6 divided by 4, 1.33, 1.66th place or something, 1.33. Okay, it doesn't matter. We're not averaging first place.
1.5, by the way. You have 2 second places and 2 first places.
Math
is hard.
All I'm saying is that I guessed 1.66 and 1.33, which right in the middle of it is 1.5. So the average of both of my guesses is 1.5 is the correct answer.
You were equally wrong both times, confirmed.
Yes, I was. I'm not getting into math right now. We're not doing that. Let's talk about. Oh man, I can already tell that this show's already breaking down into our old habits where we don't think that there's going to be enough actual stuff to talk about, so we're just going to break down into tangents ad infinitum. Yeah,
I'm excited.
I can't wait. This is going to feel like an OG episode.
Right.
But let's talk about some of the stuff that High Noon Productions has been doing. Last week we had an Around the Payload, which this was a really good one, honestly. It was another. I'll say all-star or experienced lineup. No new people. We had Pesto, the Monkey Prince, Volumil, and A Smith. Really great episode talking about some of the stuff that was happening in the past couple of weeks, and then also kind of the season as a whole as well. Really great episode. Man, I gotta give it to Pesto for coining the phrase "the Renaissance of Mickey" during that episode. It was just a great.
He corned the phrase.
He coined it. He coined it. He coined the phrase. No, he coined it. He coined it. It's a coin with corn on it. Or
you coined the phrase "corning a phrase."
Yeah, I coined it. Yeah.
I like
it. As we mentioned before, foul play just has a lull next to it because Winston's Lab and also our season was over. We're going to be doing a recap episode at some point.
Next couple weeks.
Yeah, in the next couple of weeks, where there's
Should
really
be before
no
the
hurry.
playoffs for sure. But yeah, there's not much of a hurry.
There's no hurry for it. Yeah, so definitely keep in touch with that. I'm not actually sure if there was a Blackwatch report this week or not. I don't think that there was.
I think they went live. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Either way, they should be out every week. I'm looking to see. Yeah, last Wednesday they went live, episode 19. They were talking about the Goats Run and Pit, the addition of XQC to their roster for Contenders Trials. And
You are correct. You are certainly correct. Got there. And then, all things considered, again, I don't know if there was an episode last week. There might have been.
There definitely was, man.
Okay.
Nobody's taking a week off.
Okay,
The Foul Play's the only show taking a week off. Other than Blevins,
Okay.
mentally, he's still living in Realm Royale right now.
Here's the problem with how I consume podcasts is that I let them build up and then I listen to 80 all at once. This is why I'm starting to go on these walks. I have this Fitbit because I'm fat. I go on walks and I listen to podcasts. I don't listen to them as they come out, unfortunately. So, screw me. But there was some video episodes of the Realm Royale show Get Clucked, which is like the spin-off baby from another game Realm Royale show that we're doing. So if you're into that, you can check that out. But let's move on here and talk about swear.
Overwatch Today, meme of the week.
We're back in fashion with the meme of the week here. And this one is, I have a soft spot in my heart for Princess Bride memes. And I also have a soft spot in my heart for Jonak memes. And this is a combination of the two. This is a picture of Inigo Montoya. And it has Jonak's face with Zenyatta orbs around him photoshopped on it. He says, "Hello, my name is Jonak Zenyatta. You killed my baby diva. Prepare to die."
This is where I upset Bob quite a bit and ask you what the Princess Bride is.
You don't know what the Princess Bride is?
I mean, I've never seen it. I know it's a movie.
Oh,
but it drives Bob nuts because I'll even throw GIFs out there at him in conversation that are from it, and he knows I don't know they're from it when I use them. I just search up keywords or whatever, and it fits. But yeah, it drives him nuts.
Oh yeah, he's a little bit older than us, and this movie is from like I think the 80s. So it's like a movie I watched when I was like very little. It's a good movie. It's definitely like it holds up. So if you ever have like trash time where you're like, man, I want to watch something but I don't want to watch Twitch, like Princess Bride's a perfectly fine movie to watch. It's funny. It's got Andre the Giant in it. But yeah, and of course, I'm like, I don't know what it is. I'm like completely like scatterbrained today. I'm just like jumping around. But let's talk about what we did last week, Death. Anything fun and exciting for you?
Well, I mean, obviously watched the conclusion of Stage 4. They had the playoffs, and also we had a little disappointed. Not even that the Outlaws didn't make it, but that we were robbed the super match, right? But at the same time, I'm happy about it, right? Because like if my team wasn't going to get the help we needed, I would rather go down swinging against New York, right? And fall to the best team and have that be why we didn't make it instead of like in the battle of I don't care versus I actively don't like you very much. I didn't get the win I don't normally care about. Like that's a little more of a frustrating circumstance to kind of lose out on.
When Andy Dalton doesn't make that pass, it feels like you were cheated.
Right. It feels like, oh man, how just dead inside I'd be if it was 19 seasons since the Bills made the playoffs. But yeah, no, it was honestly a really good weekend of Overwatch. It was a little light on the contested, really good matchups and things like that. But at the same time, it was really not. I mean, we saw DQD this weekend, Blevins. Like the man was on the stage. So it was great to see a lot of those guys come in. We saw the Valiant against Dallas use their backup DPS players. They didn't quite go, full numlocked into the whole playing your bench situation.
He got his chance.
He did. He got out there. That's more than a couple people, Rip Joe Meister, can say. That guy didn't even get in the preseason because the Fusion didn't show up for that. Like when you think about other guys, it's like Mendo. He at least got to play in the preseason.
I just forgot that Joe Meister was even a player, honestly.
It's easy to do. I think the Fusion did too. You should reach out to your buddy Tucker over there and let him know. But so had a good week watching that, and then we touched on it briefly. I think I was like 3 games into my Realm Royale experience at the time of recording last week or something like that. I wasn't very deep into it. I'm more sold on it now as I've just basically everybody I asked to sample it with me that first day just got so hooked. But now they're like for the next 3 days after they're like, Death, you want to go? We need one more for a recruit. Like it was just a constant stream of playing that game, and then now I'm kind of that guy pushing for finding the groups. And where's our 4th? We need a 4th.
I'm trying to
So
get
just
Mangachu
been really,
to play with us now. He was streaming it earlier.
we need to tap all of our pro player contacts
See if
so that way
Fraggy
they
wants
can
to
carry us to
play. See,
Masters.
get
Yeah.
big good. It's like we're
Bare
gonna get an
Hands, this is-
Overwatch League team of
Yeah.
players.
Bare Hands, this is a call out to you. Me and Blevins need you to hook us up with like SBB and Jonak.
Yeah.
They've got a couple weeks off still. I know they're prepping, but in their downtime, if they could grind out wins for us in Realm Royale, that would be great.
I just don't want to imagine Jonak with the Mage Legendary weapon because it's like super Zen orbs. It's like Zen. It's like Zen right click, except at the speed of Zen left click.
Yeah, on left click, with no pre-firing time. You don't
Yeah.
have to charge it. But
No.
but yeah, so I've just been kind of bouncing between watching Overwatch League and playing Realm Royale. What about you this week?
Yeah, same.
Ditto.
Yeah, that's it. That's the end of the episode, guys. No, I've been playing a lot. Like I mentioned before, started Get Clucked, which is gonna be like I don't even know how to describe it. It's gonna be YouTube videos and a podcast and probably even more stuff. Who knows? It's gonna be everything that you want to know.
Look at our YouTube channel for High Noon Podcast. It's going to be that for a different game. It's going to be a few different videos, features, things like that. But should be some familiar names. I mean, we don't have anything set in stone
we
yet,
don't
so we don't want to go into too much
We
detail.
don't need to spoil anything, and we definitely don't need to spoil anything on our Overwatch podcast about it.
No. But we will say if you do enjoy our content, you should enjoy that one if you like the game at all. And you know who our friends are in Overwatch, the Overwatch podcast community. You might be seeing one or two of their names show up on that show.
Yeah, you can check that out at if you go on Twitter, it's at Get Clucked Show, and the YouTube is one of those. We don't have the the nameplate yet because it's not. We don't have enough followers yet, but you can find it on the Twitter page. It'll be there. But let's move on here. This is probably going to be the biggest segment of this show.
It's high news.
We got some pretty important news that came in today, and we'll just run through this real quick, and then we'll discuss it. We had the off-season trades, deadlines, dates, and the announcement of two-way players. So August 1st of 2018 is the signing window opens for teams to negotiate extensions with current players or to sign players from their affiliated contenders teams. Teams may also begin making player trades. That's August 1. On September 9th, the inaugural season agreements officially end. Any players not under contract become free agents. So sign your starters up until September 9. Then between September 9th and October 7th of 2018 is the exclusive window for Overwatch League expansion teams to sign agents. So not that it wasn't very well at least assumed that there was going to be expansion teams. There's now verbiage in the official rules for the expansion teams to pick up and sign free agents. That's between September 9th and October 7th. So actually kind of a small period for those expansion teams to pick up their starting players. Then October 8th starts the free agent signing windows for all teams. And then there's a couple more things here. All teams must have a minimum of 8 players under contract by December 1st of 2018. Teams may sign or trade players until a final deadline during the 2019 season that will be announced at a later date. So by December 1st, you need to have at the very least 8 players. So no more Florida situation here, which I think is good for everyone involved. And then there will be a deadline announced later. Players who turn 18 prior to the season deadline are eligible to sign Overwatch League contracts for the 2019 season. While the date has yet to be finalized, players born before May 1st, 2001 will be eligible. So they'll clear that up as it gets closer. Beginning with the 2019 season, the term of player agreements will no longer be fixed at 1 year with an additional 1-year option. Players and teams may negotiate contracts for up to 3 years with a maximum of 1 year as an option in addition to 1 or 2 guaranteed years. So that sounds like it just opens up more flexibility for the players to negotiate. That's something that we'd have to tap Ryan Morrison to really get more details as to how and why that may or may not be better for
it's just
the
it's
players.
I feel like that one's awesome for both sides, right?
Yeah.
Like it gives the players the ability to get some stability and
Mm-hmm.
to understand, you know, this is where I'm going to be, barring some trade or anything like that. And
Mm-hmm.
we don't know for sure that no trade clauses can't or won't be included in these
Mm-hmm.
deals anyways. So yeah, it kind of gives the players some peace of mind. They don't have to wonder, you know, what team am I going to be on next year? Like a lot of them are wondering right now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it also gives the teams the ability to invest longer term into
Mm-hmm.
players. You know, now
Yeah.
when New York says, well, I don't want to play against Jonak, so we better lock this guy up for 3 years, and you know, now they can do that and really go towards building, you know, their dynasties, their franchises, how they want to see them, and they can kind of put a long-term stamp on it. So definitely, I think a strong tool on both sides. A lot of times, some of these are, does it help the player or does it help the team?
Right.
And there's going to be some on both sides. There has to be some balance to it. But this is definitely one that feels like a win on both sides here.
Yeah, for sure. Moving on, Contenders Academy teams affiliated with the Overwatch League organizations may negotiate, quote, right to match clauses, granting the parent team the right to match any offer from a competing Overwatch League team who wishes to sign a Contenders Academy player. The matching period is limited to 7 days from the date of the initial contract submission to the league office. Teams must notify the league as well as the parent team 24 hours before contacting a non-affiliated academy player to arrange a tryout or negotiate a contract. So that's basically rights of first refusal for the parent team. If someone says, "Hey, we're gonna offer Flower $2 million to play," NYXL has the ability to be like, "No, we'll do that instead." But it's 7 days. After 7 days, you know, New York loses their rights, and the other team, you know, can move forward with that. The Overwatch League will institute select blackout windows during each season to minimize disruption to the competition leading up to and during the Contenders playoffs. That's good, so that you know, Philly can't offer Flower $2 million the day before the playoffs and be like, hey, we got a $2 million contract. You got 7 days to think about it. Oh, by the way, you're playing Fusion University tomorrow. Just keep that in mind. So that's good that they have that foresight there, because I'm sure there may or may not be some tomfoolery that goes around with that.
You leave that out of the rules, I'd take advantage of it.
Yeah, why wouldn't you? Moving on here, two-way players. For the 2019 Overwatch League season, teams and players may negotiate the right to designate the player as eligible to compete in Contenders on an affiliated team. Any player on the roster may agree to be eligible for Contenders play, but a maximum of 4 players may be designated as, quote, two-way players during each Overwatch League stage, and those players must be identified and submitted to the league office prior to each stage. Two-way players are eligible to compete in Contenders. Two-way players are eligible to compete in Contenders subject to the following rules. First, regardless of where they play, two-way players count towards the Overwatch League roster limit of 12 and must earn the same salary and benefits. Sounds good. Two-way players also count towards the 8-player Contenders roster limit for weeks in which their Contenders team designates them as eligible to compete. So they're always, no matter what, an Overwatch League player, but they're not a Contenders player if they don't designate them as one.
Right. So because you can only have 8 players on the Contenders roster, and let's say the Overwatch League team for the New York XL want to pull up 4 players so that they can just sit, you know, like they couldn't do this year, basically, right? Like they couldn't sit everybody. So now they want to do that. Well, what is XL2 going to do? They have the ability to then go out and sign free agents out of the free agent pool of Contenders players, bring them into the Contenders roster, and then, you know, so basically you don't have that freedom to just add players willy-nilly into the Overwatch League. But when the Overwatch League cannibalizes from the Contenders team, they're then not going to count against their roster limit of 8 and give them the ability, because like I could pull all 4 players up to NYXL from XL2, and then now they've got 4 players left.
Right.
So what are they supposed to do? Now they can go out, pick up what they need to compete, and fill out their roster and go back to it.
Makes sense.
Personally, for my money, I don't expect to see more than 2 two-way players on any of these rosters, because the contenders teams, the coaching staff are going to want some level or
Right.
some amount of stability.
Honestly, I'm wondering how much of this at all we're going to see. I'm curious. I'm actively curious.
I'd say not as much as a lot of people are thinking when they read this, and it won't be as much as I think like Major League Baseball or even NHL. It was not going to be as active as a call-up process as those two particular sports have.
So I think a lot of that is I don't know what the actual percentage is. That's a Trevor May question, considering that he's literally experiencing this right now. But I think a lot of that's due to injury too.
Could be.
Because you physically need to rehabilitate yourself in that environment.
Maybe now, like in this situation, London wouldn't have had to pretend like Birdring injured his claw, and they could have just sent him down to get over his issues over there. No, I mean, jokes aside, it's protection against injury, it's protection against like slumps and things like that, and it's just the ability for these organizations to, the same company owns XL that owns XL2. The same company owns the Optic Academy team that owns the Houston Outlaws, right? So they're going to want to invest in these players. And given the situation and the timing and how everything works, they might be more interested and think it's a better boost for the players that they're investing in to get them that stage time at the end of a stage 4 when, New York's got nothing to play for. Because next year it could be, 3 teams could have the last 2 weeks where they're locked up and ready to go. It doesn't always have to break out the same way where there's one team on the high end. Like there could be 2 or 3 that lock up early. And so I don't expect to see a lot of this kind of movement early on. But I think you might see some significant shakeups maybe in between stages. But I don't expect there to be a lot of action, between weeks 2 and 3 of a stage.
Well, I think this also will limit the amount of action we see too. And the next rule here is two-way players lose their contenders eligibility if they appear in more than 2 Overwatch League matches in a stage. So it's not going to be hey, you're playing Overwatch League match and then boom, contenders, boom, Overwatch League, boom. It's like if you play too much Overwatch League, boom, you're out of contenders, man. Which is fine. It just keeps, I guess, is more stability kind of for the players.
Yeah, if it's longer than a 1 week Band-Aid fix for an unforeseen situation that comes up, then it's going to help them out. But trying to think of like the best situation I could think of where it might have helped this year was like the Gladiators, right? Like they got by with their 2 supports, but man, what would have happened if the biggest of geese came down with something or hurt, or, got hurt? Like what would they have done? It would have been literally, well, all right, I guess we'll play Asher even though Tracer's bad, and then we'll move Hydration to support, and like it just would have gotten ugly and sloppy really fast. So I think they're looking at some of those situations that those near misses, those things that teams and the league itself kind of avoided, the landmines they didn't step on, and I think this is kind of helping bridge those issues.
Yeah, I think the people we've talked to, and we were chatting with Thornrain in chat earlier about he's not as enthused about this, and he of course is the host of Blackwatch Report, which focuses on the path to pro. So I think this is, at first I was like, oh, 2-way players, that's kind of cool from the Overwatch League perspective. Then I heard more about the path to pro perspective. I'm like, oh, I guess maybe this is more affecting the path to pro. But now it seems like, no, this is very much an Overwatch League thing that just happens to affect contenders. This next line also supports that as well. A maximum of 2 designated 2-way players may compete in any single contenders match. So it's going to be, you're not building your contenders roster with these players in mind. You are allowing your bench player, you're pre-benching your Overwatch League players with the potential to be like, okay, like you're getting sent down. You're not sending them in to fix your contenders team. You're not sending 4 of your players to fix your contenders team. It's like, okay, you need to fix yourself and then come back up. And I think like the goal, like this, and I think maybe this gets into why Thornrain doesn't like it, is like the end goal of this seems like this is to get your Overwatch League players back and ready for Overwatch League, not to help contenders players get up to Overwatch League. That's kind of what it seems like a little bit. But we'll see. And then the last rule here is no player will be eligible to appear in both contenders and Overwatch League matches in the same week. That one seems kind of self-explanatory. Though I did once, contenders and Overwatch League seems very much like varsity and JV in high school. And I think it's Pennsylvania, rules for varsity and JV are different than New York. And I was playing in a tournament in Pennsylvania, and there was a kid that played on, like an 11th grader that played on the JV team in the first game, and then also in the varsity team the second game. And it was just like, yeah, exactly. That's what everyone's face did when that happened too. So we're like, okay, this doesn't seem right, but okay, the kid's just playing 2 games. He's just like, 6'6".
Going to a little league, and then like the running back has a beard. Like, it's just like,
Exactly. I mean, he was technically 11th graders can play on JV. It's just like usually you don't see that, and then also they definitely don't play on varsity it was literally in the same night too. So it's a weird like Pennsylvania rule. Yeah. So I mean, we kind of talked about some of this, but like, what are your initial thoughts here, Death?
Well, listen, very selfishly, as the Overwatch League podcast host, I love it because I think it's a tool for the Overwatch League teams, and I do see it as being a bit of a downside for the contenders teams.
It's more disruptive to them.
Yeah, I don't care though. I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't feel ownership, or I don't feel like a heavy fandom towards any one of the contenders teams. Maybe that'll change.
Fusion University. See, I like Fusion University more than I like XL2 almost.
But it's just like for the meme factor, yeah.
100%,
Like I love the meme factor.
Yeah.
Of
but that's like how all minor league
FU
teams are. Like that's what I feel like I think minor league baseball is making a big push of that. Like the Buffalo Wings and the Rochester Plates thing.
I'm so torn over that. Why would you bring that up? And now I'm going to be all indecisive.
Well, the Staten Island Yankees are now the Staten Island Pizza Rats, and there's the oh man, somewhere it's again in Pennsylvania, something Iron Pigs. I can't remember. Lehigh Valley Iron Pigs. Like that. Like minor league baseball should be a meme. It should be something like silly to get people in, because no one like minor league baseball. People usually don't watch it.
Right.
So like they need something else, and like I'm fine if contenders is like that. Honestly, like I think that is a whole other charm. Like it's like if JV basketball or football or whatever like was like way more extravagant. It's like if you had the choice to watch a varsity game or a JV game and your kid's not playing on one of the teams, you're just going to choose the varsity game, because why would you want to watch like less skilled Overwatch, right? Or basketball or football or whatever. Like you want to see the highest level. If you have the choice, you want to watch the highest level, not the lowest, not the lower level. So like something else has to bring them in.
And listen, as Thorne is pointing out, this is like the main topic of the Black Watch Report episode next week as well. So if you're curious on the other side of this coin, you know, the people like I sit here and go, I don't care about contenders. And Thorne's sitting there. I mean, he cares about Overwatch League. I know he does as a fan, but like he feels like he feels involved and he belongs to the contenders scene. And so it's a very different perspective. So I think I can't wait to listen to that episode just to kind of hear the other side of it. So make sure you guys check that out as well. But overall, I think this is honestly great. You know, as I look at, like we talked about, the Gladiators had situations where they might have been shorthanded, one injury away from being in trouble. Was there any teams that maybe were like missing one hero specifically out of their team roster that like would have maybe wanted it in a pinch? Maybe like Houston would have wanted. And did their contenders roster did they have one of the best tracers in contenders or anything? Oh, they did. Okay, so like you can see. And I'm bringing that up to show how it can be a tool to help teams and players down the line. And we talk about how great it is and how we want all these teams to be sitting at 12 players, all the time. And this is a way to help them do that and not keep somebody numb-locked on the bench forever. And so I think it's a great tool on both sides. With my selfish standpoint, I think it's great for the players. I think it's great for the Overwatch League teams. Maybe not for the win-loss records of all the contenders teams, but if there's ever a league where I don't think it's necessarily super important to win the whole championship and everything like that, like it is going to be contenders. That's not true in open division, because winning is how you move up. But when you're in contenders, I think
this helps open division players. It helps not. So I mean, again, it helps Overwatch League from the top, and it helps open division players from the bottom. And contenders kind of gets kind of the short end of the stick on both sides. But like,
and they'll want to win, but they're not playing for anything but money there, right? Like, and at the end of the day, the goal of all of them isn't probably like their ultimate end game goals to get signed into the Overwatch League, not necessarily be nobody wants to be the 3-time contenders champion, right? Like they want to win it once, get their name out there, get signed, and be gone.
Exactly.
So that's kind of the one group where it's okay, maybe not to necessarily benefit them like crazy. I say that like, you know, their coaches are still going to be upset about it. You know, it's going to be brutal.
The coaches
in a
are trying to
situation.
make their name to get up into Overwatch League, probably.
Right. And so if they pull somebody out of Open Division, turn them into a star, and they look great, like that's going to help them too. So
making talent, yeah.
Right. So I don't know. And overall, I think it's going to be a great tool. You know, there's like any system, like anything, you know, as plenty of things with the Overwatch League so far. It might not be perfect. It might need to be adapted a little bit. There might be little flaws with it or problems, but they've shown willingness to adapt things and change rules to stuff. So I think this is a great first step, and hopefully they can maybe refine it a little bit, improve on it some, give a little bit more back to those contenders teams. But, you know,
and the one positive I think it has for contenders teams is that if you are XL2 or something, or like if it gets to the point where like I mean, one way it could go is that every team picks their 4 two-way players, and then they rarely ever get thrown into contenders. It just it never happens. They're just there. It's just an article, a clause in an article in a rule book that is there in case of a corner case. It's entirely possible that this is just not even a factor at all. But what it could do is, you know, when you've got these players that either need their break or they're in a slump and they get sent down, it not only gives the player a chance to you know, get back in the rhythm of things, and take a somewhat of a break without having to stop playing the game. It also gives those contenders players, the other players on the team, that like kind of Overwatch League level leader in a sense. That's like, you know, when you're playing with a guy, I mean, you're going to ask him like, hey man, what's it like in Overwatch League? You know, what's this, that, and the other thing, if they don't know them already. Or like, I think a lot of the community is very well knit or tight knit right now, but in the coming years, that's not going to be the case. Like if, you know, Pine in year 5 is sent down as a two-way player, like the kid who's 12 right now doesn't know, is not probably not in the community with Pine. Like I think the Overwatch League is going to start the players are going to start differentiating themselves, and it's going to be more legit and official, in the same way that like people who are in Little League right now don't know Major League players, but they might be playing in 5 years or whatever, 10 years.
Yeah. And Thornrain has another great point in chat. Really helping out today, Thorn. Appreciate helping in chat there. But there's a real problem right now in your Open Division and your contenders teams players. You know, these guys are dropping out of college and you know, in school to commit full time to this. How much money are they making? Because it's not much. We know what the Overwatch League gets. You have to expect we have to expect about half that or something like that for contenders. I mean, that's me literally just guessing. But it's going to give them the ability to pay a couple of the Overwatch League players or the contenders players Overwatch League salaries, and really, you know, if it's a young guy that you want to commit to that's maybe not quite sharp enough there or whatever, it kind of gives you the ability to help them justify that decision and justify that effort and that work.
I just don't think we're going to see I don't think we're going to see these contenders players. I don't think we're going to see contenders players getting chosen, like quote unquote contenders players being two-way contract players. I think we're going to see Overwatch League. We're going to see low end Overwatch League players put as two-way players, not high-end contenders players. I think that's more of the former rather than the latter. I
do think it'll depend a lot, because when you look at the teams that favor the smaller rosters, the NYXLs, the Florida Mayhems, they're not going to suddenly just want to have the really deeps, you know, 12 people in their office all the time.
Right.
They're still going to value that smaller roster size, and so I think we'll see a good mix of it personally, but it could go to one extreme.
I definitely agree with you there. Let's quickly talk about trying to think, is there anything really worth talking about with like the actual dates here? I mean, I swear I wrote something down. I was going to write something. Oh, okay. So one question that's raised by these, new or updated rules here. Let's see, signing windows change, inaugural season. Okay. Okay. With the new, so last year or last preseason, we knew how the contracts were structured at a macro level. All of them were 1 year with the 1 year extension possibility. They were all 50K minimum with benefits, etc. Now that's kind of opened up so that like not every player has the same type of contract. Not every player had the same contract, obviously. Some players are getting paid much more, less, etc. But now it's like now some players aren't even getting signed to the same level of contract. So I'm wondering if because of that difference, whether officially or just through leaks or just misstatements, if we're going to get a better idea of like, oh yeah, Numlocked has a 1 year contract here, whereas, Soon is a 3 year contract with a no trade clause in this. I wonder if we're going to see even just those macro levels, let alone the numbers. I mean, I'd love to see the numbers, obviously, like that's very exciting for us to kind of almost get like a built-in like tier list for players, like, oh, SBB is making $2 million, whereas but I wonder if we're going to see he's a 3 year, he has a 3 year contract versus someone else has a 1 year contract. Do you think we'll see that?
No, but much like from the very beginning, I think we should. I think it does the players, the teams, the fans. I think everybody's disserviced by having these contract figures and details hidden.
Except for the organization.
Market values help everybody. It helps you get what you pay for. And I mean, you still got to evaluate the players correctly, but I think it would help. It would give the players better negotiating tools. It would gives
the players better negotiating tools, but doesn't that inherently give the teams worse negotiating tools? Like, doesn't that inherently hurt if the players have better tools? No. Doesn't it hurt the team?
No, because now, I mean, if let's say SBB says, well, I want $2 million, and then the New York XL can go, okay, well, since nobody in Overwatch League is paying a Tracer $2 million, even $1 million, why would we give you two? It does. Right. Are you literally over twice as good? So it helps them.
But on the flip side,
overpay.
The baseline right now is 50K because that's the number that you have to get. So if he's like, if SBB just like just regardless of real life, if SBB is worth, air quotes, $500,000, like that's his value, and the baseline is 50K, he's like, well, I'm a really good tracer, I'm going to ask for double. Like, that's not unreasonable, right? So he's asking for a fifth of what he's worth.
And I think asking for double what the highest other person, I think that's grossly, massively unreasonable. And I would want to know that if I was the organization, so that I could tell SBB to sit down, shut up, and make more than.
But in this scenario, he's worth 5 times that much. So like, because I'm making it up. That's what I'm saying is that the only number that's there is 50,000. So like, if he's worth like if everything's based off of 50,000 being the bottom, they're gonna base it off of that. But then you don't like it. It is in the company's interest, because nothing is public, to keep it as low and close to that number as possible. If it's public information that SBB in the first season made $200,000, then all of a sudden Soon can be like, well, I'm better than him, or I'm just as good as him, I want 200K. Whereas if he asked for 100K, because that's double of what the fit, like, you see the difference there. It's if the only people that know all the numbers are the organizations, they're going to be favored. And if the players start to know, it's going to hurt the organization. So that's my guess as to why they're not, like, the organizations have no benefit in releasing the numbers.
I don't know. I personally, I do disagree with that. I mean, I get what you're saying. I understand the logic behind it, but from an organizational standpoint, to me, the difference between, like, I just want to get my money's worth, right? Like, I want to know that what I'm paying somebody, because, like, I want to make sure I'm paying them correctly if I value the player and I want to keep them around, and I think you're the best tracer around. I want to be able to make sure that I'm paying you as the best tracer,
Right.
to help keep your players happy. Like it might be lopsided on the negotiation table, but it doesn't have to be a negative for the team overall. I mean, it might mean they're paying out a little more at the end, but I just subscribe to transparency is almost always good. Sunshine is nature's best disinfectant, I think is the phrase.
I'm just way
there,
too cynical about companies and negotiating. I don't know. But as that comes up, I'm sure we'll be talking about that more. And if we can get Ryan Morrison on, we'll have an even more in-depth and much more educated conversation on that. I mean, we can go into this quickly because Thorne asked it here in chat. Do you think there's any reason for us to have max contracts, or dare he say salary caps?
Max contracts? No, I think teams should be able to build their rosters however they want, and if that means to them that 90% of their budget goes to Jonak, then they should be allowed to do that. I think salary caps are always a good thing. I think they really help maintain balance in the league. You know, it becomes an issue now where when you look at what New York's going into this extension window, and without a salary cap, there's nothing stopping them from just keeping everybody, right? Like it's just a matter of like write the checks and you can just win again, right? Like it can be that way, and
so
not
cheap
that that's
comparatively to what they're paying in other sectors,
right? And not that that's the case with this team. I'm just using New York as an example because they're at the top, so they're the ones that you would talk about staying there. But you know, they could keep everybody and finish where Seoul did this the next season. We don't know. I don't expect it, but I mean it could happen.
But they have right of first refusal to do that.
Right, but yeah, like salary caps would then like give the players the ability to kind of drive their, like, I don't know, they get to move out because of it in a way. Like it sounds like a bad thing, right? Like, oh, I get to change teams, great, I'm on New York. But not every player is all about championships, right? Like some of them are going to have the attitude of, I'm in Overwatch League for what, 5 years if I'm lucky, so let's make as much money as I can. And they can kind of bounce there. So it's a little tough to say, you know, whether or not what effect salary caps would have. You know, it's going to be very individual specific. Every team's going to handle it differently. But I think from a just league balance standpoint, salary caps being an obstacle, something for the GMs and the organizations to manage around and plan around. It creates a very interesting dynamic. So I'm always in favor of salary caps. In fact, the two sports I like the least don't have one, and in large part because the Yankees get to buy rings. I'm sorry, Yankees fans, you don't deserve most of those rings. You just paid for them. And when you know, it's a bad example, but when you look at the NBA. You know, I know we've talked a little bit about it, how like the Golden State Warriors are a little bit of they kind of built that team through the draft. That's fine, but they've been maintaining it for how long, and it gets boring. And like the Miami Heat situation was appalling to me as a sports fan. It was, it didn't make me want to watch the NBA. It drove me as far away from the NBA as humanly possible when it happened. So I think salary caps are a benefit, not a hindrance. So I always want to see that.
Yeah, I mean, I think if they do it right, it can be a good thing. I'm just like, I would rather, especially in the first few seasons, I would rather err towards the players getting paid more and the players being better off than anything else. So I don't know if early on I think I would rather wait a couple of seasons for like the salaries to like stagnate in terms of like. I'd be, man, even if we don't get this information for a few years, I would love to see like the actual salaries of every player right now, and then what are the salaries for next year? Are they going up? Are they going down? Are they doubling? Is it like a new like is Flower getting a huge contract? You know, I would love to see that, because like at some point they're gonna stagnate, right? And it's gonna, because like right now, like the only number we have is 50K, but now all the owners and most of the players have like okay, well I made this much this year. I wanted, in order for me to even do this next year, I need to make this much. I'd love to see how those numbers pan out. That would be interesting. Any last minute stuff on the new stuff?
No, you know, honestly, I'm not the best person to go through all the contract minutia and to understand it all. I know what I picked up from my time with the NFL, but I have more. Honestly, I was really happy by all these announcements, but like I left it with more questions than I felt like I got answers. Though I got answers to a lot of questions, it just kind of like every answer raised 2 more questions for me. So it's definitely going to have to be a fluid situation. I love the attempt. You know, we've talked about this before, how we wanted to see, you know, the farm systems, the contenders teams used like MLB and the NHL use theirs. So I think this is a step in the right direction. I don't know how effective this iteration of the rules will be, anything like that, but my gut instinct tells me it's a really good starting point. So I'm happy about it.
Yeah, I'm not appalled by anything, and I think the two-way player thing, I'm a little cynical about how much it will get used, but I think it will be interesting regardless. I would love to see, like, my gut says you might as well just declare 4 players as two-way players. It doesn't hurt you to, I don't think.
No, but the players have to agree to it. Like, you have to negotiate it with the player into their contract.
Right, but, like, they have to get paid a Overwatch League salary regardless. So I don't know if that would be. I don't. We'll see. We'll definitely talk about that. But let's talk about the matches that happened last week here.
It's tournament talk.
So real quick, for the last time this season, I will go over the matches that happened this week, and then we'll talk about the results of the playoffs here. But the next couple of weeks, we're going to do deep dives on the matches because, you know, it's going to be off season. It's like officially off.
Might as well just kind of give them our plan for the next few weeks. So obviously this week we're putting a cap on stage 4, and we're talking, kind of looking back at just this stage. Then next week, we're going to look at the season as a whole and go through the bold predictions we made at the beginning of the season, see which ones we were right about, see which ones we were horribly, horribly wrong about, and, you know, laugh at ourselves a little bit for some of them. Maybe we'll look at the power rankings. I know those were brutally bad. We'll take a look at those. And then, the 2 weeks.
Too off. There was some.
I think off. Most of them were way more wrong than they were right, but we'll save that for next week.
I'd like to say I had NYXL at 1 the whole time.
You and Bare Hands both did. Yeah, and then the 2 weeks after that, so the 2 episodes right before the playoffs, we're going to be deep diving the individual matchups. So we're going to be looking at, and again, we'll give you those matchups in a minute, but we're going to say, you know, take the first 2 that are going to come up, or we don't know exactly how the schedule is going to play out, but we'll look at 2 of them at a time over 2 weeks. We'll go deep into them, positional battles, the map pools, stuff like that. We can't do them now because we don't know time they're going to play. We don't know what maps they're going to be on, stuff like that. So originally I wanted to do 1 every week going into it, but I just think we need to give ourselves and the league a little time to release all the information we'll need to do an accurate job of it. So those will come in 2 weeks instead of 4. Really excited about them. So.
Yeah, gonna be super fun. But for stage 4, week 5, the first inaugural season of the Overwatch League, on Wednesday we had Los Angeles Gladiators 4-0 the Shanghai Dragons. We had LA Valiant 3-1 versus San Francisco Shock. Seoul Dynasty 3-1 versus Dallas Fuel. Thursday we had Houston Outlaws 3-1 over Philadelphia Fusion. London Spitfire 4-0 over Florida Mayhem, and the Boston Uprising being the first team to beat NYXL twice in the regular season. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Sounds right.
I think that's right. My voice can't get any higher. Beats the NYXL 3-1. Friday, we have NYXL eking out the victory versus Houston Outlaws 3-2. LA Gladiators 3-1 over Seoul Dynasty. Dallas Fuel 3-1 over the LA Valiant. Fuel, man, that's such a weird. They lost to Dynasty, but they beat Valiant. It's so weird. Saturday we had Philadelphia Fusion 3-1 over London Spitfire. Which bullet point on this one? There's a video that I saw on Reddit of the Dallas Fuel as a team watching that last match. And man,
awesome.
It was great. It was like they're just right on the edge of their seats because they needed, if Philly 4-0s, then Dallas doesn't make the playoffs. So they're like, rooting for London. It's really kind of cool.
There was the exact situation with the Bills when they made it, right? Like there was videos going around of them watching the last play when Dalton threw the pass to get them in. It was the same situation. Like everybody's come on, indecisive. I don't in the middle of the play, like what's going on? I don't know. Like trying to keep one kill to the one side. Yes!
Bird ring,
right? And then the wrong kill happens, and they're like, oh no. So it was honestly. Despite the rivalry, I really found myself like rooting for Dallas in that situation just because I identified it with it so much as a Bill. Like it literally just happened to me right before the league started with the football team. I love that they had the foresight to record it and distribute it. That was great. I saw it on the Dallas Fuel YouTube page. If you haven't watched it, check it out. It's a great moment. I think especially for Fuel fans to get to see the team that hyped up, you know. All jokes aside, it was a 12-28 season for those guys, which is a brutal run. So to get that jubilation at the end of it was just an awesome moment for them. Make sure you see that. That was awesome.
Definitely one of those human moments that you can just identify with, regardless of what team, as long as it's not Boston. But by the way, Saturday. So after that match, we had history made here, with San Francisco beating Shanghai 4-0 as the Shanghai Dragons, I guess, continue their history-making run of being the worst professional team of all time. I'm not even trying to rub it in. That's just factually true.
As far as U.S. sports leagues go, we know that.
Yeah, they got to be quickly approaching world sports soon too, right? I don't know.
Yeah, it's got to be. I don't think the number was higher than like 40 or 50. So you got to turn it around quick in stage 2 or season 2.
Exactly. And then the last match here was Boston Uprising 4-0 versus the Florida Mayhem, which moves us to Sunday, the playoffs. Playoffs. We had LA Valiant beating the LA Gladiators after the Gladiators chose to play them first, and the call out happened. They end up losing. They denied the split and then lost in the playoffs. I mean, there was no split, but that's the same kind of feeling. Then NYXL beats Dallas Fuel 3-2. So kudos to the Fuel, but man, 3-2 versus NYXL is always definitely a good one. And then the LA Valiant end up winning the stage here 3-1 versus NYXL. Another sad second place for NYXL.
Now, on that topic of NYXL, they continued through the duration of the finals. They did the same plan, what we talked about last week. It's not even an I told you so moment, but I'm just going to say, like, what I laid out was exactly what they did. They didn't care. They didn't change their plan. It's a little scary that New York with that plan is good for second place. It was even really funny. Like, their win rates followed Mono, right? Like, throughout most of the weekend, it was if Mono played the map, they won the map. If Janice played the map, they lost the map. It was like that way through the
follows a lot.
It was through the duration of the Houston match. I think it was their first match of the week as well. It was interesting to see that play out. And if I'm being perfectly honest, the stage 4 playoffs was way less hype for me as a result of that. You know, like New York wasn't playing their A team, and but one thing I do want to say, huge props to the Gladiators. They got the number 1 seed in the stage. They gave the fans what the fans wanted to see. And I really, really respect that about them. They said, under no circumstances do we want the Valiant to leave the playoffs or us to leave the playoffs unless we get to play each other first. And obviously they would have wanted it to be in the finals, but you don't have the control over that if you don't pick them right away. Also, they BM'd the Boston Uprising while they were doing it, which is just a surefire way to get yourself near and dear to me in my heart. So that was great to hear and see. Also, we learned, I think it might have been the first time I've ever seen like full frame Deepay on camera. He's not big enough to be hip checking people. Just to go back in time, he's not big enough to be apologizing for accidentally bumping into people. That's something I have to do with my ginormous frame. I just thought that was really fun. I'm like, this is the guy.
Before.
What's that?
I've broken someone's car before. I literally smashed my butt through my friend's windshield.
Joking around with one of my friends in high school, I literally broke his rib.
I knocked out my friend's front tooth by accident.
Yeah.
We are big people. We're too big.
We're too big for our own good. It's going to be a heavy car rolling into New York for the finals. Yeah. Let's just say that. But yeah, no, it was just shout outs to the Gladiators. You know, they didn't win, but I loved the way they went about it. They gave the fans what they wanted to see. It was a great match. They really showed up in that match. They played really, really well. You know, that's clearly not a matchup that I think if we see it in the end of season playoffs that is decided by any stretch or anything like that. That's going to depend heavily on Matt Poole. I really enjoyed that matchup in particular. It was weird. Like the first matchup of the playoffs to me was the finals, the one I cared the most about, the one I was the most into and enjoyed watching the most. So shout outs to both of those teams. And also the Valiant, you know, it was not very long ago at all that I was like dismissing them as an average team and everything like that. And I'm not going to say I was wrong at the time because I don't think I was, but they've really stepped it up to close out the season. Space is continuing to impress. Now he's showing more than that mechanical ability. I've been saying this for a couple of weeks, but he's really fitting in well with Fate now. And that tank line is back up to, and I think leveled up from what it was with Fate and Envy, which if you remember when they made that trade, I wasn't sold on that being the case. I wasn't sure they would get there with that synergy in the first stage. And a lot of people called out the Valiant when they made all those roster moves in the middle of the season when they had the ability. It looked like panic. But their coaching staff is not getting enough credit. The organization is not getting enough credit for the vision that took to pull off and execute all the swaps they did, everything that went down there. So a big congratulations to the Valiant, everything they're doing. Really elevated themselves to a team that appears to be one that can compete with New York going into the regular playoffs. They, I think, have that upward capability to them now. With Soon and Agility is really popping off on the DPS category and the DPS side of things. Really elevated their level of play to match, frankly, what the support and the tank line have been able to put out for a good amount of the season, whether it was the old tank line or this tank line. You know, I think they're making strides everywhere, but the most notable is on the DPS side, and a lot of that's due to the substitutions they made, the coaching, the organizational side of things. So not enough. They don't get enough credit from that. The players are getting it all. But they're kind of what Houston looked like for a while, right? Like the team that's built off chemistry and synergy as a group, not necessarily your standout players. I mean, sure, there's playmakers there, but that's not how they win. They don't win off the back of those necessarily. They win off the back of synergy. The Valiant are really doing that right now, and it's fun to watch. So I'm enjoying watching the Valiant more than I have at any point in the season.
Absolutely. And I mean, if history is anything to tell us, they're in for a slump, but there's a lot of things that are different now from when they were Immortals. Like they have much more stability now.
I think what we learned is that they're going to be the Florida Mayhem of season 2 if they follow their trajectory, right? Like they won Contenders season 0 and then they dumpstered themselves. I mean, not Shanghai Dragon style, but Florida Mayhem style. It was close,
very close. But
there was
only reason not because the Renegades are doing the same exact thing in that scene.
Right. Man, Renegades! Shout out to the 5-hour energy.
5-hour energy, Detroit 5-hour energy Renegades.
The worst named team in the history of esports, in my opinion. But yeah, it was despite loving the Renegades moniker, adding the sponsor into the name was brutal.
Yeah, man.
But
Florida,
anyways,
the Renegades they have a cool. I like their logo too. Like I like a lot of things about that, except for the
play on the
should have been Monster Energy instead.
But or NOS is the only energy drink I would support. But
what about balls?
I can't support balls. I just can't do it. But yeah. So, anyways, I even forgot a little bit where we were going there. But yeah,
we're going to talk about the
props to the Valiant.
Yeah, Valiant were good. One thing I'll talk about, and I'm sure we'll be talking about this a lot, is that like kind of what we were talking about the last couple of weeks is like there's two options here, right? NYXL is hard committing at the cost of money to a no matter what, we are going to follow this game plan. We don't care if it's going to cost us how much. What's the difference between first and second in the stage playoffs in terms of money?
Chump change compared to the season playoffs.
They're essentially spending money to hide strats or force out strats of the other team in a certain way that is going to give them a competitive advantage in the season playoffs, which makes logical sense. Like, you can follow through with that, and it makes logical sense. They are hard committing to it, or they were taking a break, so to speak. Like they said, they didn't prepare for the fuel, which that makes sense. You're not they're not necessarily expecting to play against the Dallas Fuel, given the way that the playoffs came out. They would have expected to play against LA Valiant in the first round. They ended up playing the Fuel. They win 3-2. It was a very close match, and then LA Valiant ends up winning. I mean, we talked about it, and like, they've just not been giving it 100% these last couple weeks, and they've been losing matches. You know, they lost to Boston this week. They lost to LA. They lost to LA Gladiators 2 weeks ago. If you are, you know, I'm a New York fan, and I'm not 100% confident. Like, if you asked me 5 weeks ago at the end of stage 3, if you asked me how confident I am that NYXL is going to win the season playoffs, I'd say, you know, 90+%.
You'd have called it a 5-0, I think.
I think I would have called it a 5-0. I don't think I'm giving it a 5-0 this week. Right now, at this current juncture, I don't feel confident in the 5-0. What about you, Death?
I can't. I mean, they're still the favorites. They definitely
sure.
are. But I do want to put a little perspective on the money situation here. You know, for locking up first place in the regular season overall, I believe the New York Excelsior were awarded $300,000 as a bonus for it. Now, the prize pool for the stage 4 playoffs, that's first, second, third, and fourth, all the money combined was $125,000. So when I say it's chump change, I mean, a few grand is nice for all the players,
right.
But like, that's kind of what it was going to be, and it's a drop in the bucket compared to what the end of season totals will be, especially for a team that's already won 2 of them and things like that. So,
right.
You know, it's definitely not something I think they needed to focus on, but we would have understood if they did. Now, to answer your question about how comfortable am I with them, you know, locking them in as the winners here, they're obviously going to be the presumptive favorites, but and there's a solid chance. But to me, I boil it down to like 50-50. Either the New York Excelsior got themselves some time off, rested, rejuvenated. They're going to come back just like they were before, but they're going to be mentally sharper than the other teams because of the longer break. Or they let all the other teams catch up to them a little bit, right, and the gap got closed, and we don't know which it's going to be. We won't know until we get there, until we see it play out. It is a bit of a crapshoot. Now, I will say, even if we get to that situation, and that's exactly what they did, they've still got a really good chance to win.
Even throwing NY still makes the stage playoffs and gets second.
Right, gets second place. You know, so they're not going to be throwing no matter what, but it's going to be a matter of, you know, did the Valiant and are the Spitfire and the Fusion able to get back to their peak form at the right time and really have a chance. You know, the Gladiators are a team you can't rule out either. You can stick a fork in Boston. I'll say it right now. I don't see them going very far in the playoffs here. I don't think they're a serious contender. But it's a situation where there's doubt now, where, you know, we hear a lot of people in our Discord talking about it like, well, nobody's going to be, like, they say it like it's true already that New York has won. And I'm like, guys, watch more sports. This doesn't happen. Like, the Patriots are the best team in the NFL every time. They win the whole thing when they're the best team, like 40% of the time. So it takes more.
Reference is still very good, but
right, phenomenal even, to be perfectly honest. Like, it kills me to say it.
Locked up.
Right, but it's not locked up. There's a reason. Like, all the cliches come back. Like, this is why we play the game, right? Like, all these things, and now there's that doubt and maybe in New York's mind, we don't really know. Lucky for them, they don't speak English, so they don't listen to our podcast, and they don't have to hear us put the doubt in their mind. But, you know, it's one of those situations where it's going to be on the mind of people. I think the opponents will view it as maybe a slight, like, you can if I'm coaching the other team, the team they have to play in the semis when they come off their bye, I'm going to be telling them these guys haven't played a match that matters in 2 months. They've been screwing around.
Like,
this is our
we've
opportunity.
beat them already. We know what we need to do.
Come
We've
out fast. We
line.
know what they can do. Mechanically, they're not stronger than us. It's about a team game, and that's something that the teams didn't have to be able to say. If New York came out and crushed everybody into the ground the entire way, finished 36-4, whatever they were on pace to do,
whatever they probably should have gotten,
right, then it would have been a different story. And I think just on a mental advantage, they would have carried it through and been fine. They're all getting a month off right now anyways. If that's not enough of a break to get your mental game back, I don't know what to tell you. But so there's definitely that shadow of doubt that's creeped into our minds now. Shout out to the Magic crowd that knows that card. But yeah, so I don't know. It's an interesting situation, one we can't answer definitively. We can just kind of talk about the possibility of it. But it adds some drama when they do come back in the semi. It's like, now I really want to see it. I want to just fast forward a month and play that match and see how they look on that first map and just kind of go from there. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. And I don't know. It's going to be a lot of fun to see.
I think at best, so at worst, they do have doubt in their minds because they lost to Boston. They had a very close match to Dallas Fuel, which credit where credit's due, Dallas looks much better now. But still, they lose to LA Gladiators and they lose to LA Valiant. I mean, this is the worst stage they've had. That's just objectively true. This is the worst stage that they've had. And they're playing against every team that is in the playoffs right now. Has beaten them before. Every single one in the playoffs has beaten them at least one time in the past here. So it's not like these teams don't know how to do it or haven't done it before. It's not an unaccomplishable goal. So I think at worst, this could be getting to them, and that could have a huge effect, especially in the format like this where, like, it's all or nothing right here. You lose, you go home. There's no coming back. This isn't a long race here. It's the playoffs. And
Playoffs.
Exactly. And at best, I think it just confirms nothing. If they're like, yeah, well, we knew we were going to lose because we're not, we're not trying, we're sandbagging, we're trying this strat, we were trying to get as much information out of that. Okay, great. That doesn't confirm that you're better than them. That just, it doesn't confirm anything at best. It just, doesn't do anything for them except answer whatever question they were trying to answer by doing this. I don't know. I just it's one of those things that when you theorize about it and you think about it and you talk about it with people and you have conversations on podcasts about it, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah, we're not going to we're going to sandbag. We don't want to give away all our strats and stuff. It's like the way I'm sorry to everyone who hates the Magic references, but it's like when people talk about hate drafting, this is going pretty deep into the woods.
It's super deep.
Okay, but I'm not even going to try to explain it because it's too deep. But the people who get it will get it. When you people talk about hate drafting all the time, they're like, oh well, I can't give my opponent this. I need to make sure that they deny this and this and this, and then all of a sudden you end up with a deck that's really underpowered because you hate drafted a bunch of stuff and you don't have enough playables. And you end up playing 19 lands. It almost seems like at the end of the day, you're the best team. Just play the best Overwatch and beat people. You don't need to overthink this. Like if you're like in traditional sports, this is almost unheard of, right? You don't see teams like, okay, you see teams playing like garbage time and stuff like that, but like you don't see teams like, especially in playoff type situations, like not trying. Like you just go out and you beat the team. You're not like
You do see it a little bit, yeah. But I think it's different in the traditional sports because the threat of injury is much greater. And how good are you going to be in the playoffs if your quarterback, tears his ACL and can't
you
play?
have the same chance of getting injured in those sports for sure.
Right, and something I've seen in our Discord that I want to address as well. Listen, because I heard somebody say very specifically, I want to see New York get dumpstered in the semifinals so that no team ever does this sandbagging nonsense ever again. It's not going to be the way it goes. There's no magic right or wrong answer here. Right. New York's not right or wrong to do this and scope. And in the future,
think they're wrong.
Like it depends on the group of players you have and how they're going to react to it. And
Right.
it's your job as a coach and as a team and as an organization to accurately judge the players and know these guys will be better if they take it easy for a month and we go really light on the schedule and we give them all their rest. Or they need to know if, no, these guys can't take their foot off the gas. If they take their foot off the gas, they're never going to get back on track. They're never going to be back to what they were before.
Right.
And so there's different organizations, coaches, GMs, they'll all have different opinions on how it should be handled. This is the way NY decided to go this time. Next, it could work for them brilliantly. They could cruise and never be contested through the playoffs, win the whole thing, come back and next season not do that because the roster's two players different and they don't think it's right anymore. And you know, those players are really momentum based. And you know, there was a lot of talk this week about how momentum-based Houston was. You know, it's not something Houston could have gotten away with if they'd run the table like New York did. You know, those players are too hype-based. If they'd have tried to take it easy and sandbag like this, they probably would have gotten brutally punished for it. That doesn't mean New York would be. So there's going to be teams down the line that do this. There's going to be teams down the line that go, no, I want to be known as the team that's had the best record in the Overwatch League history, and so they go for that. And that was something, you know, New York was getting no matter what. Once they locked up first place, they were going to have that particular record there. So this isn't an all or nothing, right or wrong situation. It is, in hindsight, this team was right or wrong to do this, but it's varies and it changes with, you can change one player on the roster and flip what the right call is there.
I agree with you 100%. From the giving players rest standpoint of it, I'm talking more like and Thorne brings it up in chat, hiding strats for playoffs. I think like you just next level yourself too much. Like just play Overwatch, man. Like if you need to give your players rest, okay, I'm fine with you playing like garbage time and giving Animo a lot more time and giving Janice more time. Although Janice gets time no matter what. I can't argue.
Always had that one game mode that he played.
Yeah. But like I'm fine with that because the players do need rest and whatnot. But like we're just gonna actively not play well and play bad strats because we're hiding some sort of strat. That type of thinking is what I was talking about with the hate drafting and like trying to next level yourself. It's like, well, I'm not gonna do this just because I don't want to make sure that my opponent doesn't see it. It's like, okay, well, how long is that? I guess like you like deny your team, the other team, a month to strategize around it, but like they don't even know what patch necessarily they're going to be playing on, right? Like if new Hanzo is out, and I don't think we're going to see. I would highly doubt we see new Symmetra, but if new Symmetra was out, and like
I think they've confirmed we will not see that in the playoffs.
New Symmetra or new Hanzo?
New Symmetra will be season 2. Symmetra is a line of absolutely not demarcation. Like you're not getting that.
So, like, if new Hanzo happens, like, the meta could be wildly different, potentially. And, like, what strat are you hiding that is so
I've been trying to tell the team that. We're like, well, let's look at this comp they played. And I'm like, they're on a different patch. They don't have the Hanzo to keep the tanks at bay. Like, you know, they don't have all those
I don't
things.
buy the hiding strats thing. And, like, if it's just, we're just going to run Animo, and, like, there's a clear, like, like, I don't want to say downgrade, but a difference in play style that hasn't worked out as well to Arc, especially with Libero and Jonak. Like I'm fine with that. Like just get Animo more playing. If the thing is like we're just gonna get Animo more playing time, okay, I'm fine with that in the like air quotes sandbag. But if it's like we're hiding strats and not showing stuff because of that, like that is where I start to get upset about it.
You can almost go the other direction with it. Play weird stuff you're never going to use, but put it on tape and make them look at it. And that's the route I would
maybe
go,
that's
right?
what they did. I don't know. Like maybe
no, because they just ran baseline. Here's dive and a non-dive meta, and if you can stop us, we'll switch in overtime and beat you anyways.
Right.
That was more their plan. But I would be putting like weird stuff. Like why, New York? Listen, why didn't you play Symmetra? Give me a reason. Find a spot where it's decent because it exists right now. Where it's like, okay, right? Like if you get full held, which happened to them a few times, right? Like, why didn't you pull out the Symmetra? Make the risky play that might full hold them back, you know, return the favor on it. Like do the weird stuff that most teams wouldn't do. You saw, you know, Houston do it. I mean, it was a pocket, like they brought out the Torbjorn attack when the payload came out on Blizzard World. They put a Torbjorn turret on it. Like that's the kind of thing that you do that. And then every team that plays you after that has to at least spend
maybe
30 minutes of their team meeting going, okay, so if they put the Torbjorn on the payload, how are we going to react to that?
Right.
Okay, here's ideas. Here's what we're going to do. You force them into that.
Because they're going to use all of that random garbage in the finals.
But
maybe that's why.
And if it works, but if it works, right? Like, so here's the weird thing, and everybody like jokes around about the attack Bjorn for the Outlaws because they didn't even take the point, but like it worked there. Like it pushed them right to the end. It bought them the entire point of progress because Jake just stood on it, healing his turret, and the team didn't have a comp that could contest it and all this stuff, and it was weird. But then after that, like they just needed one more fight after that, and they didn't get it. So it wasn't the Torbjorn's fault, and they ran it till it wasn't effective anymore. The Torbjorn worked. He didn't even get a kill, but the Torbjorn worked. It did its job. It screwed up the other team. It pushed the free progress. So you put that kind of stuff on tape, and people have to have a plan for it, and they have to do it. And then you just don't use it, or you use it if you think they did. You know what I mean? You have the option to use it or not, but either way, you've committed that practice time. You might get to want to check them on it. Well, did they prepare for it? But I don't know.
If we don't see something crazy from NYXL in terms of comp and strategy in the playoffs, I'm going to be very upset.
If they run dive until people beat them in the season playoffs, I'm going to be right there with you, furious. So I'll agree to that.
Yeah, but we'll be talking about this ad nauseum for the next few weeks, I'm sure. So let's wrap it up here and just kind of preview what the playoff matches are going to be. Of course, New York Excelsior and LA Valiant secured their top spots for their divisions, and they have the first round bye in the playoffs. We'll be seeing Boston versus Philadelphia and London versus LA Gladiators as the first two matches, not necessarily in that order. We don't have the exact we don't know really a ton of details other than the matchups themselves for those matches, right? Do we? I don't think so.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question. I was looking at something.
We don't have much about these matches other than we know who each team is playing, not when they're playing or.
We do know the days, I believe. It's July 11th, I want to say, is the very first day, and then so it'll be
playoffs bar of
July 11th, 12th, 13th, and 14th will be the first round of the playoffs. But we don't have times. They put the dates up on the broadcast, but not the times, and I think that was just due to wanting to schedule them like London's in here, and they're in such a weird. So they want to make sure they give them the time zone or the time slot that's friendliest to the London fan base to allow them to watch it, and I think that's why we don't know the times quite yet. So we'll have to wait and see exactly what comes out of it there. But yeah, so we know the days. It will be starting on July 11th, and it looks like it's going to run Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, just like normal. So we'll have.
Gotcha. Makes sense. So we'll be previewing those matches. We'll do in-depth everything on those matches in the coming weeks. Not next week, though. Next week is going to be a season recap. We've done this we've kind of done these types of episodes before, the recap episodes, of course. We'll do that next week, and then the week after, and the week after that, we'll be doing the in-depth analysis on the matches and moving on from there. But that's it's going to take us right to the end. We're at almost exactly an hour 15, like we predicted. Hour 17 right now.
And Josh 89 helping chime in from the chat here. It'll be Boston versus Philly in the first one. I didn't grab screen caps out of the broadcast. That will start us off on July 11th. So thank you, Josh.
Cool. All right, Death, that's going to take us to the end. Unless do we have anything last minute that we want to go over or talk about or anything?
No, that should be it. Just keep an eye out. Next week should be really fun. And honestly, I think it's going to be a really fun episode. We're going to be doing a lot of laughing at ourselves and making fun of each other for the just ridiculous things we said in the past. I'm actually really, really looking forward to that. He's talking about it in Discord too. Like the things we put ourselves through going into this season was insane. Why did we do power rankings? It was the most impossible task on the face of the planet. Like,
ZP was the only one who was smart enough to just be like, yeah, power rankings are dumb, man. I'm like, I know, but
I mean, we did them because they were super fun, right?
Yeah.
Like, and now we get to go back and have even more fun with them at our own expense. But an inaugural season power rankings, never seeing any of the teams was just, and we should have known it would be literally impossible.
Yeah.
But there we were. I remember being confident too. I was like, no, I feel like I've got it. Like, I've got a handle on these rosters. I knew, right?
Just all flipped over on itself. But if you guys have any, notable memories or anything that we said, or any clips of anything that you can remember, throw them in the show suggestions tab on the Discord, which of course is discord.me/highnoonpodcast. You can check out everything we do with all the shows at
Let us know the dumbest
highnoonpodcast.com.
things you can remember we've said all season long.
Yep.
Can't wait to hear them.
Yep. But yeah, everything we do is over at highnoonpodcast.com. Join the Discord. It's the best Discord. It's just the best Discord in Overwatch. If you're into competitive Overwatch at all, it's the best Discord. Go there. We talk frequently about stuff. There's arguments, discussions, trash talk. Yeah. Arguments. Omega lol. But yeah, that's gonna be it, guys. Any last second stuff, Death?
No, that should be it. Looking forward to the playoff preview.
All right. Well, for Deathblow and for the last time for season 1, regular season, I'm the Blevins, and remember, it's high noon.
Got his boots and he put on his hat. Threw the coin away that same day. It's in his past and he's not looking back. He says, finding mine now, God's my way. He's not good, but he sure ain't bad. He'll make amends for the sins that he has. He says, I'll change the world one bullet at a time till I find mine.
I got nothing. This is like the first time where I just say I got nothing for the end. Nothing at all. Nothing at all.